Hello everyone, my last video was received fairly well, so I thought I'd make a video about my actual computer as well. So this is my primary computer. This is where I game, edit the videos, do work and all sorts of other stuff as well. And yeah, it's here for some dusting, but more importantly I brought it here because the ancient, maybe if I remove this smoked panel you might see it better, the ancient Corsair H100i here, well, it's dead. And well, kinda dead. The pump is still turning, but at a really slow RPM, and well, the temps are really high, and more importantly the CPU is throttling to the point where it's like 500 megahertz or something like that. So yeah, right now, while it is technically functional, it's not really usable. So yeah, I have to replace that cooler, and I got a H100X as a replacement here. So this is basically the same cooler based on the same design. Unlike the newer H100Is, that's the one I have is the old version, 5-6 years old, maybe even more. The newer H100Is are based on Asetek design, but this H100X is still based on the same cooler design. Not that it matters too much, but yeah, this is the one I got. The reason why I chose this one is because same day delivery was an option for this. So well, that's about it really. I want this computer running back as soon as possible, and I don't really have a replacement cooler. I did have a Hyper 212 at some point, but I gave it away. So all I have right now is an Intel stock cooler from the Haswell era, and obviously that doesn't fit AMD sockets. So yeah, that's the replacement. But as I said, this computer also is in need of dusting. Well, it's just me pulling my finger, and you can see how disgusting this is, thanks to my cat, of course. Inside the box we get some random paperwork, the unit itself, and two of these terrible Corsair fans. I'm a Noctua fanboy, so you might call it me being fanboy for calling these terrible, but they really are bad. They're really loud for what they are. Yeah, definitely don't recommend them. Obviously, as I said, I'm a Noctua fanboy, so I recommend them Noctuas, but even any other decent quality fan is better than this. Just don't buy into this Corsair crappy fans. I dropped it on the floor. Who cares? I'm never gonna use them anyway. Fan splitter and the unit itself. This is pretty much the exact packaging of my H100i as well. So yeah, looks like they just changed a few things and rebadged it. But one of the reasons why I chose this actually that I forgot to mention is the mounting hardware. You can see that this still uses that clamp mechanism of the old AMD systems, and it's still used on the AM4 socket as well. And it's the exact same one on the H100i as well, my old one, and probably the newer one as well, to be fair, but again, those weren't the same day delivery. So yeah, I will be just able to swap it really easy, and it's not going to be a big deal. So this is one of the reasons why I chose this, but again, the primary reason was the same day delivery. So I guess let's swap this. I'll do some more dusting on the computer, and then I'll finally give you the tour. The new cooler is now installed. You can see that I installed it in the same place with basically the same hardware, and everything is working just fine. Well, at least in theory. I haven't tested it obviously yet, but it's time to show you around the system. But just before that, before someone comments in the comments, I know this looks like a downgrade from the H100i, even the old H100i, but well, since it wasn't working, it's better than nothing is one thing, and secondly, I wasn't using any of the Corsair Link features of the H100i. I think they rebranded that to IQ or something. I only started once, set the RGB color to red, and messed with some of the other settings, but figured it was a bit waste of time and a bloat for the computer, so yeah, disabled it and moved on. So yeah, that's what happened with that. With this, unfortunately, the LED is only white, but who cares? I'm not really that into RGB anyway. But if I did have the option, I would set it to red. But yeah, you can see the rest of the system here. This is a Corsair, not Corsair, sorry, Asus Crosshair. That's where I mixed it up. Crosshair 60, first gen Ryzen motherboard with a AMD 1800X in there. I got the 1800X because it was only slightly more expensive than the 1700 and pretty much the same price as the 1700X in my country, and it also meant that I didn't have to wait a couple months to get it, so that's about it really. This was only like $30 more expensive or something like that, not the same as US pricing here. I have 32 gigs of 3200 DDR4 Corsair RAM here, but Ryzen, especially first gen Ryzen being Ryzen, I can only run them at 2800, can't even run them at 3000, so yeah, that's not great, but that's the best I can do. This is the GPU. This is a GTX 1080 Ti for the Win 3 water-cooled edition. So yeah, that's pretty self-explanatory, I guess. It has a Asetek unit attached to it, and yeah, it's a 1080 Ti. It has some fancy features because of the for the Win 3, but nothing really that important. This is my boot drive, the NVMe 970 Evo Plus, 500 gigs. So that's where I boot off of, but I also have a few more SSDs and a few more hard drives installed in this. Once you see them, you might think that I'm insane or something, but yeah, you'll see. And before we look in the back, most of the cooling of the system is handled by Noctua fans. So here we have two NFF12s and 3 more up here. The exhaust fan is the stock Fantex fan. That's because this is visible. As much as I'm a fanboy of Noctuas, I'm not a fanboy of their color scheme. And back when I bought these, this was really the only option. Now I know there are other options, but yeah, I'm not going to just buy new fans just for the color scheme. Again, I'm not too concerned about the aesthetics. And before we move on to the back, lastly, and the front fans are the stock fans as well, because they're not visible and they're 140 millimeters, which theoretically would still be better than 120 millimeter Noctuas. So yeah, that's the reasoning there. But the case is Fantex Ento Primo. This is the first case Fantex ever made, and it's a pretty good case for what it is, especially for the time. But I bought this for water cooling. That's really the primary market for this. But as you can see, well, when I say water cooling, I don't mean AIOs like that. I mean like full-on custom loops, and well, you can see that I'm not running that. The thing is, our economy went to shit and I couldn't afford it, but I do have some of the water blocks and stuff like that lying in these boxes. Like these two are 780 Ti water blocks from Swiftech. They are chrome plated, not nickel plated. I remember that, even though I don't know why they did it. And yeah, they were pretty nice blocks for the time. And yeah, you can't see the rest of it, but this is the XSPC reservoir, for example. I have EK memory cooling there, and I had Mayhem's XT red coolant as well. Don't know where it is right now, but yeah, that's all I managed to buy before I had to stop doing that, because well, my 4770K based system with two 780 Ti's were really outdated by that point, and well, as I said, our economy was doing pretty badly. Moving to the back, you can see the rest of my storage solution and my yeah, that's the DJI gimbal. It's not great, but anyway, Moving on, this is the power supply that I have. This is a FSP Aurum Pro. You may not know FSP because they mostly do OEM stuff, so they produce power supplies for likes of EVGA or Corsair or whatever. They don't have a big brand, but yeah, as I said, this is by them, and this is actually a reputable power supply manufacturer. At the time I bought this 6 years, 7 years, something like that ago, whenever 4770K launched. This was one of my two options, other one being Corsair AX1200i, which cost double the price, so I went with this. And I don't regret it, but I want to replace it at this point because it's semi-modular and, well, the wiring isn't great, as you can see. I want a fully modular power supply so I can also do custom cable sleeving at some point. I still want to do the custom loop stuff, I just can't afford it at the time. Here we have two more SSDs. The one in the back is an 840, I think, Pro. 256 gig, and this is a 500 gig 850 Evo. I also had a 840 Evo 120 gig, and I will have it back pretty soon, but I loaned it to someone temporarily. That was my first boot drive, but obviously the technology advanced a decent amount. My first drives on the system were one 2 terabyte Western Digital Black and two 1 terabyte Western Digital Blacks, but I gave them away to my father. He needed a computer and they weren't enough, so right now I have a 8 terabyte Seagate and 10 terabyte Seagate here as well, so in total I have 18 terabytes of hard drive storage, plus about, actually a little more than, well, decent amount more than a terabyte of SSD storage, 500 gigs of which being NVMe. So I have a decent amount of storage in this computer, but I'm still running out of space. I don't know, I need help, I guess, with data hoarding. I don't know. That's with the including the NAS, which also has like effectively with the redundancy 6 more terabytes of storage, and yeah, the NAS is also pretty full, so yeah, I know it's ridiculous, but it is what it is. So yeah, that's my system, and this is my setup working now. It's right in the middle of the living room, but who the hell cares? Perks of living alone. So here you can see my triple monitor setup. I have two AOC panels, 1080p, 22 inches if I remember correctly, and in the middle I have Acer 27-inch 1440p IPS display. Well, actually the side monitors are also IPS, but this is true G-Sync with the FPGA and 144 Hz. So this is one of the first displays. Actually, this is the second display right after the ROG one from Asus, and this was the same price as that, if I remember correctly, $800. But this one was IPS and that one wasn't. So the color is slightly better on this one, but it's not like it's a production quality monitor or anything like that. But yeah, still gets the job done. Again, here's the computer. My audio setup is this AudioGut NFB 1128, and I have two headphones right now. I have the K7XX plugged in. I normally use my HT6XX, but the cable, I need a replacement cable, so I'm waiting for that, and while I'm waiting I'm using my K7XX. When I do voiceovers in my videos, I use this Rode NT USB mic. It's actually much better than the phone mic that I'm using for most of my videos, to be honest. But yeah, this is a USB mic. It's only really good when recording to a computer. If I, in the future, if this channel grows enough, and if I decide to get a DSLR or something, I'll probably get a decent XLR microphone as well. But yeah. For now, that's what I use. And my keyboard and mouse, they're pretty standard. This is a pretty ancient at this point, G710 Plus. This is after the color change, but other than that it's still pretty old with the old Logitech logo there. And G502, this is the non-RGB one. The RGB one came out later, but again it's pre-worn, so these two things definitely need replacing. And you'll notice some keycaps are missing. Well, the thing is they got cracked, and yeah, they got destroyed. Plus on some of the switches themselves there are problems, so I can't even slot in a replacement keycap, so yeah, that's a problem. Yeah, it's not in great shape. Again, I need to replace that at some point. He's not this annoying normally, I swear, but I don't know what's going on with him recently. He's really looking for attention. But anyway, I'm just running Cinebench right now just to validate that the temperatures are remaining somewhat stable. This is not really the most optimal way of doing this, but Cinebench is the only benchmark I have installed on my computer, so that's how I'm doing it. But yeah, it looks pretty normal. And in hardware info 64, again, everything looks normal. What was happening before was the voltages volted down to 0.8 volts and about 500 megahertz for each clock. And the fake CPU temperature, this is again some stupid thing with the first gen Ryzen. I don't think it's the case with the later ones, but I could be wrong. The CPU is reporting 20 degrees higher, so the fake one is now around 60. This was like 100, and the die one was around 80, the real one. So yeah, definitely the cooler was at fault, and yeah, replacing it solved the problems. Now I need to replace every other ancient piece of crap I have lying around in that computer. But yeah, for now everything is good. And just for the fun of it, because I knew the temperatures while it was really throttling, they were stable, I just ran Cinebench once, and well, you can see the score I got with the throttling system and the point I got here. Now don't take this as a representative of my the performance of my system. This really is not an optimal situation for benchmarking. I have a bunch of bloats running in the background, and yeah, it's not optimal. So again, don't take it as a representative of my system. If you want a representative, you can look at the 5th position, because if I close the bloat and run the software again, that's what I get usually. But yeah, that's kind of it for this video. So again, I hope you enjoyed it, and yeah, if you did, please leave me a like down below, and thanks for watching.